On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
Was always taught growing up. Specifically, my mom said, in business and in life, don't be unequally yoked. If you've got intentions, you're moving at a certain speed, you're a certain type of person, and you yoke yourself up with, let's say, a partner or a landlord or a distributor or an employee that doesn't have the discipline that you have, doesn't have the drive and the goals that you have, they don't have the buy-in. That's where tension comes from, and stress. And it can cost you a lot of money, and it can cost you a lot of time. And then in the end, typically your relationship with the person or the entity that you're working with is the bridge is burned.
You are listening to Gathering the Kings with Chaz Wolfe, featuring fellow 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners who have real battle scars from business and life, but have prevailed as the king that they are designed to be. We welcome high-performing entrepreneurs to the stage in order to reveal the real of the real on what it takes to build a successful business today. We dissect the good and bad decisions they've made along the way that give a true and accurate picture of the journey of success and how you too can get there. Through this dialogue, you will learn the value of growing your network and surrounding yourself with power players and kings like today's guest. Grab your pen and notebook because we're about to dive in.
What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast. Today, I've got Tim Floros here on the King stage. My bearded brother. How we doing?
Chaz, thank you so much for having me, man. Doing great. How about yourself?
I'll give you a woot woot back on that one. That's kind of like my go-to when we celebrate as a team. I've got the typical woot. Not even a woot woot. Yeah, exactly. We're kindred spirits over here. But I like the one singular woot. And so that way they know literally that I'm being sarcastic.
Well, 2 woots is a victory, definite victory.
It is. It definitely solidifies the wootness of it, but it at least raises my eyebrows and goes, hey, all right, we're on track. I love it. Tim, I appreciate you being here today, brother. What kind of business do you have?
Yeah, well, thanks, Chaz. It's awesome to be here talking with you today. I am in the beer business. I have founded and run a craft brewery out of Westchester, Pennsylvania, called Levante Brewing Company. And we make and sell and deliver joy to all those around us through beer and other beverages, seltzer, cider, etc.
Love it. A little cider action going on there. I haven't heard that. That makes me think of the fall and taking my kids to a pumpkin patch. So I'm in that lane for sure.
It's always so much fun. Yeah, and usually, when I do so, we'll go to an apple orchard that has a cidery there. You'd be able to sip some of the wares while you're picking apples and lifting the kids up to the top of the tree. It's a good time. Right. So yeah, we do a little bit of cider as well.
That's awesome, man. I can only imagine that it allows for diversification in customers. But, I told you before we got started here that I haven't met a brewer that isn't passionate or isn't excited about the business. You mentioned that you're a bunch of nerds and you just nerd out, or a bunch of geeks and you just kind of get excited about the product and the experience and, of course, the taste and the science that goes behind it. I say all that to kind of set you up here for my first question, which is your why, like the burning desire of Tim. Is it beer? Is it below the beer? You said you're delivering joy. What does all this really mean? What's the deep insides of you and what you're doing here?
It's funny. That's an awesome question, because you see that in so many, personal development books and seminars, and, you always want to know why someone's doing something, because the root of the why is probably the most important thing. And for me, it's changed over time. Frankly, I think the why changes. At first, it was just an absolute burning passion for beer and business. But it was more so on the beer side. I wanted to know, I actually, when I was in college, I studied abroad in Italy, and I fell in love with the food and beverage scene there. I came back to the US. I wanted to get involved with the food and beverage scene here because it's a great way to get into business. When I had my first craft beer, I was just over 21, and I guess it was my first legal craft beer. We'll call it that.
You weren't doing anything with craft beer before that?
Never tried a craft beer. I probably did, but I didn't know what I was drinking. Don't tell mom and dad. But my eyes opened when I had my first craft beer. It was a Dogfish Head 60 Minute. And I just wanted to learn everything about it. I wanted to read every beer book that I could, every business book that I could, and figure out how I could make this into a business. At the time, I was in entrepreneurial studies at Villanova University, and it was all about this dream to create this product and to share it with other people. And that's still there. That why is still there, but now it's much more about family and community and, creating jobs and adding value and all of these things that the why is starting to shift. Even where we are now, about 8 years into business, we've always been into community, but I'm much less concerned with brewing a new experimental fun beer. And I'm much more concerned with or proud of the fact that we can raise food to fight hunger in the area. Like we're going to do for our annual hot party, we call it. Every year during our anniversary, we just do basically a giving back party where we raise food, funds, and awareness for fighting hunger.
Wow.
So I think that's really where it's gone. I want to, make sure we're creating economic stability for those people that work with us and the people we serve, communities we serve. But it's not bad kicking back at the end of the day, drinking one of your creations and just fostering communication with friends, family, etc. So that's the long-winded answer of the why.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you set it up perfectly, actually. Not only do we understand a little bit of your journey already, and we'll get more into the detail of it, but you gave us the transition from warrior to king. And that's really what it looks like in the mindset of, I sought out for my personal ambition, whether that was money or the fact that you loved business or beer, or that you were just super curious or geeking out, as we called it before we hit the record button, of all these like little things that we love about the thing that we do. And that's all great. But at some point, impact or influence, community, your family, your friends, the people that work for you, their family, all of those people, or the responsibility of such, takes a different foothold in what it is that you're meant to do, or that you realize that you're meant to do. So you gave us a great picture of that. Would you like to add anything to that?
I would just support what you said. There's that old saying, heavy is the head that wears the crown.
That's right.
And, not to toot our horns as, kings or business owners, leaders in business, but when you start a business, you're on this adventure. And as you go throughout the process of, being a leader, actually being in business, you become much less of that. Like, let me charge ahead. Let me be on the front lines. And you take a step back and you say, like, how do I take care of my people? How do I take care of myself, my family, et cetera, and just truly grow rather than just output. So it's changed a lot, but I still get to geek out with the brewers. So that's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's always those moments, using the king language again, of just that he wants to get a little dirty, maybe a little bloody even.
For sure.
But the reality of the weight that you described of the crown is responsibility. And if the king dies in the battle, or in business terms, is stuck in the day-to-day, like you were creating a new craft beer, then all of the other things, the community, the raising funds and food, like all of those things actually don't get pushed, because nobody else is gonna do those things like we do.
Yeah, it's so true. It's a tough balance, but because you're constantly asking yourself why. But I mean, that's why it does change. And I think a lot of people don't give that enough credit, that your why can change.
Yeah,
so
as it should. That's right. As it should. Okay, well, let's hear about the journey. You said that you were at Villanova. Maybe the listener is like me and doesn't have a clue about Nova, unless we've seen him in the Final Four.
Of course.
But how did your story go from there to opening up your first business?
Well, it's funny because when I look back at my story, I always think about, like, there's a lot of chance and maybe luck involved, or if you want to call it fate, et cetera. But when I was younger in high school, my family was very entrepreneurial. So I got to learn, my favorite book growing up was How to Win Friends and Influence People. It was one I read every year. I would do little experiments in my gym classes, like, okay, well, if I treat my team a certain way, or, how will that affect the success of the team? And so I remember back to doing those things, like wanting to work with people, wanting to, to affect change in some way, shape, or form. And I thought the best way to do that was go into the military. So I don't know how that translated exactly, but I think it was just working with people and leading. That is what I wanted to do. It's kind of weird. Like, I want to be a leader. I just don't know what. I just want to be a leader.
Great place to go learn how to be a leader.
Yeah, it's a good way. I mean, that's what they say, and that's what you see in the movies, and it's very kind of glorified. And I had family members in the military that I just respected so much. And my grandfather, my great uncles all fought in World War II. Fantastic people, fantastic leaders, and very brave people. So I figured, that's great. I'm gonna do that. And then maybe when I get out of the military, I'll go into business. Of course, fate would have it there were other plans, but I joined ROTC, got accepted into Villanova, and joined the ROTC program, their Army ROTC. And I did 2 years in that program and I was gung ho, just all about it. That was my why. That was my passion. And it's funny, we talk about the why and passions changing. 2 years into my ROTC scholarship and studies at Villanova, I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease and I had a real tough time health wise. I, was failing courses because I wasn't able to kind of stay in school. I was in and out of the hospital a lot. And that's when that why shifted to, okay, like, do I even want to be in school? I certainly can't be in the Army anymore because that's a disqualifying condition for an officer. And I turned my sights back to business, no pun intended, turned my sights back to business. And Villanova just happened that year in my junior year to be piloting an entrepreneurship minor. And I was like, I'll give it a shot. I'll do entrepreneurship. I'll pick up a language. I picked up Italian and I started studying entrepreneurship. And it was such a cool program. I got to actually pitch business plans to successful people like the CEO of LinkedIn at the time.
Wow.
I got to pitch a business plan to him for LinkedIn and growing LinkedIn in the college communities around the country. And actually our group won and the CEO of LinkedIn took us out to dinner in the city and everything. It was really cool. But you got to learn the whole process of finding a business that you wanted to be involved with that could be successful, writing a business plan, pitching to investors, and then get it right up to launch. But that's as far as I had gotten.
Yeah.
So, I know we talked a little bit about the itch. The itch was there, but that's like, oh man, I never really launched. We kind of launched businesses. We had basically launched an online student housing website that helped match landlords in the area because there's not a lot of student housing on campus. It was a real need that we thought we could fulfill. So we got a database of all the properties that were approved for student housing in the area. And we started a website and started matching just for free. We didn't monetize it at first, started matching students with potential landlords. And that was really cool. And my first lesson that I learned there was, you have a partnership with these other students and you're starting a business. The first lesson that I learned that I was really reinforced from my father earlier on in life was partnerships are the devil. He would say. So what happened was, before we're about to graduate, before the business ever even starts, everyone's kind of squabbling over what they put in, what they have rights to as far as ownership percentage and all that. And the lesson I learned from the onset was if you're going to have a partnership, you need a really good plan. You need a really good partnership agreement before you ever start.
That's right.
Yep. So that was a really cool lesson. And fast forwarding into how I got into beer was when that kind of dissolved, I decided to study abroad in Italy. I fell in love with the food and beverage and particularly the family run wineries there.
Yeah.
I was not drinking too much. I was just sampling. And when I got back, I wanted to create that here in the US. I didn't know on the West Coast, they were doing that with craft beer and it was kind of making its way over to the East Coast back in the, early 2000s. And it was a real boom. And I just didn't know that it existed. So once I got, tried my first craft beer and got involved in the craft beer boom, I feel like I blacked out, literally and figuratively speaking. I feel like I blacked out and fast forward, bam, now I have this brewery. We're brewing, thousands of barrels a year. And it was all just because I got bit by that bug.
Yeah.
Fell in love with the production process and the business process of all that. And the rest is really history.
Well, I think that you're right. I think that we can all relate to, I had an idea, I had a thought, I had a wild hair, and all of a sudden a business. And obviously there's a lot of detail in between there. We're going to get to some of that, but I think it's actually a pretty true depiction, especially 8 years in. I mean, I can look, I bought my first franchise when I was 24, so I can look back 11 years and go, holy moly, there's a lot that's changed in 11 years. Actually, it feels like a whole nother life ago. And I mean, the ability that you have now to be able to look back over a lot of those details and just like, here we are. But there's a lot of things in between there. So that's the meat here of the show. So you set me up perfectly, Tim, for a nice little transition here.
It wasn't even rehearsed.
It wasn't even rehearsed at all. We're just flowing, just bearded flow over here. But I want to know in practical sense, what's something that you did maybe even early on as you were building that you would just do over and over because it worked so good. Something maybe that we can implement into our own businesses. Good decision.
Yeah, I mean, the consistency thing is always big because we'll make good decisions, but then maybe not follow them up with consistent effort. And if I were to say one thing that I did that I'm sure there were a few, but one thing that I did, I ordered this painting, and behind my desk, which I never sat at because I would always starting the business, I would always be out on the front lines like we were talking about. It had it was a picture of a cityscape, like a skyline. And
Yeah.
you might have seen this, Chaz. There's a river or water right in front of it. And there's in the river, the reflection is a dark reflection of the skyline. And then
Oh,
of
okay.
course there's the half the picture has the sun in the background and it's bright. And at the top it says early mornings and the bottom says late nights. And I think that the discipline that I had to always be there early and always be working on the business early in the morning and late into nights, not like a grind per se, but really just always being intent, like having intent in what I was doing and working
Yeah.
on the business all the time. I think that how hard I would work and how much my mind and my heart and soul were in the business,
Mhm.
it gave us as a company, as a team, it gave us this energy and this kind of leg up or one up on all of our competition. No one could keep up with us.
Yeah.
So if that answers your question there, it would have been that consistent, just intentional thought process day in, day out on the business. I didn't get
Yeah.
distracted for a long time.
Yeah. And I think that you actually set it up perfectly there. What I heard you say is that you weren't working from behind the desk. And now, obviously, there's different industries listening. And okay, as a listener right now, you might need to be behind a desk. That's not what I'm saying. What Tim said is that he was in the business making things happen. And we all know that's warrior mode. Great. We got to be in it. We got to make it
Yeah.
work. But the intentionality, like, so the next layer to being there and being in the thick of it is, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go all in, early, late, whatever it costs me, whatever it takes. But I'm going to be focused about it. I'm not just busy, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that a lot of people, especially early on, they're busy being busy rather than busy being intentional. Even if you're in the business still and you haven't been able to elevate to working on the business, you can still be in and being intentional and not just running around being busy. What would you add to that? Because that's a little bit of a conundrum that people feel like they get, like, okay, I got to go through the busy thing and working in. Even that can be super intentional.
Yeah, I would just add that even because there's this distinction that I always ask myself: am I working in the business or on the business? And we'll have these ideas on where you are in your history in the company or your position in the company. I should be working on it 100%. That's not always the case.
Right.
The focus is important, and the intentionality is important. So I feel like for a very long time, it required, because there wasn't anyone else to make the decisions and do the work, it required focus. Not on multitasking, because I don't even really believe I'm a good multitasker, but it required being focused on whatever it was you decided at that moment. So if it was brewing beer, I'm focused on the quality of this beer. But then if you jump down from the brew stand and you got to fire off emails and order supplies and talk to customers that you're distributing to, you shift
Right.
gears focused on that, working on the business there. So yeah, I would agree. You're in warrior mode for sure, and it never really goes away, but being able to focus on the battlefield is huge.
Yeah. What you just said there is that over the course of time, your perspective of the battlefield changes, and maybe you're
Yep.
not the one on the front lines, and then maybe you're not the one on the field at all, and then maybe you don't even go to the battle. Maybe you're still, back and choreographing the effort. But I guess the intentionality is what I want to try to pull from there. How does the listener, maybe they've got a huge business, maybe they're just getting started. When you said I'm intentional, right? Like, okay, I just choose to do this one thing. Well, that seems really simple. How would you suggest that they just be intentional about what they're doing, whether that's in or
It's not an easy task because you got to know where you want to go, I think personally. And
that's the
why.
intention?
Yeah. And that's what we talked about, the why changing, not to weave it all together, but as your why changes, so will your goals. Like your goal, you're not going to set your goals today. Let's say your 10-year goals, your BHAG, whatever you want to
Right.
call it. You're not going to set them today and it's not going to change. So I just think that if you're really clear on your goals and you take the time, whether it's early morning with yourself to just revisit them, maybe it's late night, early mornings or late nights.
Right.
You visit why you're there, put your goals down on paper, actually write them down, and, tell your inner circle, like, this is what we're doing. Tell your people, like, this is what we're going to shoot for. And then work it all the way back to where you stand today. And what you need to do weekly, monthly, et cetera, to get there. And I think that when you're in the startup phase, that just comes really naturally to you, where you're like, oh, I know why I'm here. I'm here to be successful. And they talk about, there's a bunch of books out there, but one I love is Scaling Up. And they talk about these valleys of death, and you start the business and you're just going, you're maybe up to your first million, up to your first 2 million, maybe even 3, and you don't even have 20 employees yet, let's say. Everyone's gets daily connection with the vision from the founder or the founding team.
Right.
And then as you grow, you kind of drift from that. And I think it's important for leaders of business. And even I'm doing this right now. I try to do it at least quarterly if I can. Is just sit back down and figure out how far you may have drifted from your why, or do you need a new one altogether?
That's right.
And I think if that answers your question, I think to have intention, you've got to know what you're focused on. What are you intending to do? And then working that back, because it's so easy to get distracted.
Yeah, I love it. I hope that the listener is paying close attention. I say that often on these shows, but everything that you just gave is like really, really practical. It's like the actual definition of the word intention, but it's
I should have
like
just started with
ding.
Webster.
I mean, yeah, bro, but sometimes we just need to hear it a little different way. We needed to hear the Tim Floros way. So let's flip the coin though. Tell me about a bad decision, something that you did that you can keep us away from.
Man, there's so many. I love to talk to young guys who are starting breweries, or young or old, but people new in the brewing industry. And they're like, oh, you think I could, pick your brain a little bit about, how to build a successful brewery? And I was like, I can't tell you how to build a successful brewery for you, but I can tell you what not to do, how not to lose millions of dollars, or friendships, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I would say probably this is really a theme, not a specific decision. I'm sure I could go into them, but the theme would be that I didn't pay careful enough attention to who I was working with.
Okay.
And the benefit, their abilities versus mine, what I was giving to them, what the benefits were for them to be working with me or our company, and vice versa. Because I was always taught growing up, specifically my mom said, in business and in life, don't be unequally yoked. If you've got intentions, you're moving at a certain speed, you're a certain type of person, and you yoke yourself up with, let's say, a partner or a landlord or a distributor or an employee that doesn't have the discipline that you have, doesn't have the drive and the goals that you have, they don't have the buy-in. That's where tension comes from, and stress. And it can cost you a lot of money, and it can cost you a lot of time. And then in the end, typically your relationship with the person or the entity that you're working with the bridge is burned. So I would say that I try to think about this often, because 8 years in this particular business, and I look back and I'm like, ooh, there's some burned bridges for sure with people, with businesses, or just decisions and lost money. And I think if you, from the onset, just like we were talking about, if you think about like, how is this relationship going to help the business, the team? How am I going to help that relationship? And actually, are they going to get what they need? Is this just one-sided?
Right.
If you can answer those questions, everyone will benefit from this. And everybody is bringing the proper skill sets or, drive or discipline to the table. Then I think you got a win-win relationship. I think it's choosing relationships and partners irresponsibly would be my biggest mistake.
Yeah. Well, I think that we can all relate to you. So I think that you're speaking out of a vein that we all can understand. But I loved how you said there. I mean, the equally yoked piece makes a lot of sense, because otherwise the weight is improper. So a lot of times people don't know where that comes from, but it's from two oxen being yoked together and pulling a cart or pulling a plow of sorts. And so you want them to be equal so that the weight distribution can actually work for efficiency. And so if it's not, then the whole thing doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And so it's just a physics thing. And so the ability that we have in relationships, our marriages, our friends, our, like you said, and then all the business relationships, vendors, employees, partners, keeping these things in mind, not everything has to be like, we have to be the exact same person, because then there's not going to be any tug pull. There's not going to be any challenging. You guys are all just going to fall in line and do it my way, which may sound actually great at the beginning, but that doesn't build a big organization. What I hear Tim saying is that I just need to make sure that the foundational pieces are the same, where the weight is right. Actually, what popped in my mind was Patrick Lencioni's book, Ideal Team Player. He talks about hungry, humble, and smart. And these three things is like, okay, if this person's hungry, humble, and smart, like if I can really dial those things in and go, okay, well, I can align myself with this person. Our pace is going to be the same. We're both hungry. Our attitude or our gratefulness, our ego is going to be the same because we're both humble. Our intelligence, maybe not actual IQ, but our ability to want to learn and grow and want to gain knowledge. Well, that's being smart. Okay, so if we're aligned in these things, this is probably going to go really, really well for us. I've kind of thrown out some different concepts here. What would be your response?
I would agree 100%. I'm so glad you used the term alignment, because we probably could have said that in the beginning, but we're digging so much deeper into it because people use the term alignment. I always say that it's much better to place weight on alignment than trust, because especially in business, because let's say you've got an employee, you've got a business partner, you've got a vendor, and the relationship requires a lot of trust, but you're not really sure that you're aligned, meaning your goals might not be the same. Let's say you've got a distributor that they don't want to grow, and like let's say you want to 10x your company, but you're with a distributor distributing your products to to your entire territory or a large portion that doesn't want to grow like you do. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't want to make the investments. You're not aligned.
Right.
So, and same thing with people when it comes to, like you said, it was hungry, humble, and what was the last one? I haven't read that once yet.
Yeah, hungry, humble, and smart. Yeah.
I think it's smart part. I think that the alignment is the key term there, and it's hard to tell if you're aligned. But I like to think about that nowadays. It's just like, if I'm interviewing someone who's coming on board for any position, because all positions are important, do they align with the culture and the expectations of the organization? Because our culture is important. If on one side you've got someone who, frankly, just doesn't have drive, they're not aggressive, they might even be a little lazy, they're not a team player. On the other hand, you've got someone who works their butt off and they're extremely disciplined and they sacrifice for the good of the team, you're going to lose your good people. It's usually that the bad people are going to stay. So alignment, awesome word.
This is deep, man. It's what builds and then keeps companies, its culture. In fact, actually a good friend. He started off as a mastermind client and became a good friend and now business partner. We're launching a consulting offer for garage door companies, but this works with any home service or any business. We've got our semantics of how the business works or the machine, but underneath it all, it's culture, man. It's culture. And the dynamics of tweak this or tweak that or implement this or implement that almost mean nothing if there isn't a culture to stand on. And so it's kind of a buzzword, but I'm kind of hitting it home here all the way, because whether, again, the listener has a big business or a small, like paying attention to the people and then also the environment of those people, and what are we going after? What's our intention? What's the environment? What's the, are we focused? Are we aligned? What's the energy? Like, there's just so many words that go into that, but it matters is, I guess, my point.
We're not all pulling in different directions. It's not tug of war. Now you're actually you're pulling the wagon together, which is great. Right. And I've seen, we've had people on our team that have worked really well and all pulling, we've had seasons, I should say, with our team where, you've got the right mix and everyone's aligned. And we've had seasons where maybe everyone isn't. And that's when that's when it correlates to the numbers and the graphs and all the money and fun stuff, is when your team's gelling, the money's coming in.
Yeah. There's momentum, like actual tangible, like the atmosphere is thick with momentum. Like you can feel it.
Feel it.
Oh,
definitely. Yeah. Jinx.
Yep. Tim's over here taking me back to the 4th grade, y'all. Here we go. All right. I want to know about a process that you follow. Is there a magic formula of making good decisions? That's what we've been talking about. Something comes across your desk today, Tim. How do you tackle it?
Oh, man. I mean, the making good decisions. Well, so I guess you don't know until you look back and you say, like, oh man, I should have seen that. I should have seen it. You always say that. I'm sure you've had situations of decisions you made where you were like, this opportunity, right? Opportunities come across your desk all the time, I'm sure, right? This opportunity is great. It's a fantastic opportunity. But then I think where I've made mistakes or made really great decisions is in the process of marrying that up to what my goals are, what the company's goals are. And, can we align that opportunity with what we're doing as a company, as a team? And I've certainly taken opportunities that I thought were great, but just didn't do the due diligence that I should have in the people or the opportunity or the customer base, et cetera. And those are the ones that end up costing you, I think. And it's not just the money, it's the time and the momentum, because as you know, and I'm sure a lot of other people listening know that, like, once you get the momentum and you can feel it, and then you lose it, or
Yeah.
it could be years sometimes to get it back. It could be a
Yeah.
long time. So I think when you're sitting there and you're like, things are going well, I want to take advantage of another opportunity, not doing the due diligence, not really giving myself the time to think about that.
Yep.
Has been tough. So I've developed a little bit of a, kind of step back and think, when there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of either opportunities or problems coming your way.
Right.
Just step back, kind of disconnect for a second, get as much information in as you can and think about like, how does this really affect me and my team? And then, with that kind of like look before you leap type of thing, don't just go making decisions. So if there's anything, I would just say that decision making, I've slowed down a little bit. I've said no. If it's a rush and there's too much pressure, it's a no. And that saved me a lot of, I think in our team, a lot of hurt.
Yeah. I
Answer?
want to make it absolutely does. I want to make a quick, like you said, a really powerful word there. You said if it's a rush situation. And I think that there's a distinguishing between speed and rushing. And so you said you have this process now of maybe slowing down, really not necessarily slowing down in your decision making or slowing down your business, but slowing down your mind so that it's not rushed. I think that's the distinguished, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but it's the same thing that I've done for myself, is that things are moving so fast and I got so many different projects or businesses or employees or things hit me at all times, let alone my phone. I mean, geez, like just all the time. And so being able to slow it down so that I can make a quality decision. It's not slow it down to like take 3 weeks to make a 30-second decision. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a process of analyze, think, decide. Like, boom, just whether that's 30 seconds or 3 years. I'm not really necessarily saying that a long-term decision shouldn't only take 30 seconds. I'm just saying that we shouldn't elongate a decision just because we need time to think, right?
Yeah. When you look at the opportunity and you look at the time required to act, you still want to act appropriately. And again, like many others, I'm sure, have made the mistake of actually physically slowing down and like, because that opportunity won't be there for you. But then so you can't go too slow. But at the same time, you also can't say, oh, this opportunity is going to go away. Another one's not going to come. I've got to, disalign, myself and my company and this opportunity. I got to get them together. I got to force them. And that's where the problem, let's say a contract, like I'm negotiating a contract and I have a deal killer. If there's this one term term or section of deals that I always look for to be right, because I know, let's say it's force majeure with the pandemic nowadays, right?
Right.
If I'm just not comfortable with the force majeure clause in this, and it's going to potentially hurt my business, don't rush it. Talk it through, negotiate it out. And if you can't work that out, it's because you can't align yourself with that other side. They're not on the same path as you are. So hopefully that'll save somebody millions of dollars here.
I'm sure it will. Yeah. The words rush and hurry are not your friend. Don't get rush and hurry confused with speed. Speed is always your friend.
Yeah.
But rush and hurry are not. One is confusion, one is clarity. And so I think that you can operate in speed if you have a specific lane and you know what vehicle you're in, you know how fast it can go and you know where you're going. That's like, boom, pedal to the metal, I can go fast. But if I have confusion or if I'm unsettled or if things are just in a whirlwind, then I got that like about me or the angst. And so it's like I'm rushing or I'm hurrying. Constantly or chasing my tail. There's a complete difference. And so I think we did a pretty good job of breaking that down.
Yeah.
I want to go to our, exactly. I love speed's my friend, my friend. I want to go to our speed round here. Speaking of speed,
man, we couldn't have done that better.
Couldn't have done it better. See, it's like you're my co-host. And so maybe shoot, we're getting close to 300 episodes. Maybe 301 is a co-host situation. I don't know. All these different ideas popping off here, Tim.
Yeah, you put the position out there. I'll apply.
I love it. All right. So what KPI would you track if you could only pick one to track forever and ever?
I knew you were going to ask that question. I knew you were going to ask that. And I didn't have my answer down. And I think it's only because there are so many.
Yep.
Again, I know you ask a lot about books that people recommend, and I'm not saying I am saying I recommend it. Scaling Up by Vern Harnish and that crew there. They talk about KPIs in a little bit different way. They call them kept promise indicators. And I think in looking at it that way, because there's KPIs like revenue, margin, all those things are so important. Cash. Listen, if you don't have cash, you're dead.
Yep.
We've all experienced that, right?
Oh,
But
we've all been dead on the table. It's been a flat line.
Exactly. It feels
Somehow,
terrible.
some way we get resuscitated. It's like it won't die on the inside of us. We've all been there. You can.
And those are great KPIs. Never, I would say, I'm just not giving a typical answer here, but yes, cash, all that from a business side is super important because you could be cash flush, doing a great job, make one wrong decision, and it's really hard to keep cash at a stable point. Like you're just not doing so hot. But on the other side of things, you can be dead on the table and needing resuscitation. Who's going to revive you? Your customer. I mean, you can't lose. To us, our brand is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And if you lose your customer base and you lose their faith in the product or the brand or you, whatever business you're in, that's huge. So for us, we're 100% satisfaction guarantee. And our team is trying to find another way to say that, but it's kind of hard that's what it is. Like if somebody buys a beer in the store, they crack it and there's like too many hot floaties in the bottom of the can, which will happen. They reach out to us. Our customer service team will send it to me and I'll personally reply to their email. And I'll just say, Hey, John, sorry you had such a bad experience with this. I'm going to send you another 4-pack or another 6-pack. And, we hope you enjoy that. Please give us feedback. And I'll just sign it from Tim Brewmaster. And those types of connections are huge. And people usually end up saying, hey, I wasn't satisfied with one product that I got, but I got the same one from the Brewmaster and it was great. So they really took care of us. Or we constantly hear, Levante has the best customer service around.
Yeah.
I would say that's it. And to make a long story short, the 100% satisfaction, and we'll measure that a few ways. We'll look at it online. I don't know if you've heard of Untapped before, but it's basically beer social media where everyone goes and everyone who is interested in seeing the ratings of a beer can go on Untapped. It's untappd.com. And they can type in Levante Brewing, Cloudy and Cumbersome, which is our flagship IPA. And they'll see the rating out of 5, and maybe, hopefully that one's up towards 3.8, 3.9. I forget where that is right now, but you'll see the rating and then you can go down and you can read people's experiences and they'll say, why did I rate this at 2? Because, I got at this bar, they didn't clean their lines or what, et cetera, et cetera. So we track our ratings on that site, but that's very subjective. So we also have customer surveys. We're redoing our customer survey now in our tap room because we want to get people's, meaningful feedback on how their experience was. Do we have the right beers on tap for you? Maybe you've got celiac and you wanted a cider on tap, or you wanted a non-alcoholic option for your group, et cetera, et cetera. So we're listening and we're constantly listening. And I think the best time to kind of create that customer satisfaction is when we screw up. Yeah. We do e-commerce. We send beer directly to people to their homes in a few states around us. And oftentimes we'll pack the wrong order and people will be really upset. And we'll just be like, you know what? This one's on us. We'll just send them the right stuff if we can, or gift card, et cetera, and make it right. So KPI would be the kept promise indicator of 100% satisfaction guarantee. Doesn't matter if you drank the whole case. If you tell us you don't like it, hopefully we don't find repeat offenders there, but if you didn't like it, we'll take care of it.
Yeah. The repeat offenders show themselves pretty easily because just like a thief, they don't steal more than what they could have just earned. So it's pretty actually easy. And then because of the weight of your guarantee, it takes care of all the other actual people that you need to take care of. So I love that. One thing that you said in there that I want to just pull out for the listener, because I've heard this over and over again just in business, but I had this experience with one of my mastermind members. I don't know, maybe like 6 months or maybe 8 months or so ago. And he had gotten a bad review. It was on Google. And he got so excited and he shared it with the group. I actually thought he was being sarcastic. He was so elated. And so we were going back and forth and because it was on a chat and not, in person, I couldn't hear him. And I thought it was a joke.
You're like, why would you share this?
Yeah, I'm not on the same page at all. But he was genuinely excited to be able to get that type of feedback so that he could dig in and implement, a better experience. He is just all about experience. And I am as well. I've learned that the experience, or satisfaction is the ultimate, right? Like that's just what keeps us.
Yeah.
But his excitement around that was a whole nother level of experience for me to watch it in person, like behind the scenes. No one else could see him. The customer, well, obviously he got with the customer, and yeah, exactly. I'm sure he took great care of them. But to see the back end of him almost giddy, and it was like, well, this is cool and weird. Like, you're getting excited about a 1-star review. But when you flip that script, it's like, no, this is good. Like this gives us, we should never, ever, ever get this type of response again, because we have now a chance to fix it.
Yeah. That's such a great response from your friend, because like, if you never had those opportunities, like there's a lot of people out there who may be dissatisfied and they go tell 20 people, but they never tell you. So like if we hear back, let's just say 5 times a week, someone who might be dissatisfied, and we have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of customers out there.
Right.
How many more are out there and they're dissatisfied? And it's something that we're doing wrong or not doing for the customer. And here, our mission is to elevate the craft beer community experience, and we're not doing it right.
Yeah.
So I actually tend to, I got to take a page out of your friend's book, because I tend to take these things personally.
Yeah.
And again, I have to step back and be like, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, so I have to take a step back and just like say, okay, if I bought this product,
right,
or if I saw your ad on social media that maybe wasn't properly communicated to people and I had a misunderstanding, how would I feel? If I drove an hour to get, to visit your brewery and pick up beer, and your team gave me the wrong beer,
right,
how would I feel about that? So we really just try to, if there's a mistake within the team, mistakes are cool. They happen all the time. They're not intentional. We'll meet with people and we'll talk to them about how important the customer experience is, because it's the only reason we have jobs.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're laying dead on that table. There's no one there to resuscitate you when you're, out of cash, or there's a pandemic,
yep,
or anything like that. So
exactly. What do you think about intentionally networking or masterminding with other entrepreneurs, Tim?
I think it's so important. I personally don't do enough of it, because I think business people, right? We get our blinders on, and we're in the zone, and we're like, we feel like we have to have all the answers, and we feel like we don't have time to invest in relationships with other strong business people.
That's right.
But if you think about it though, if you take time to meet with people who have been through the same things or are going through the same things,
yep,
it's invaluable for you. I've always had some mentors in life, but I recently started expanding that mentorship base. And I had a call with the mentor recently, and it was regarding just basically overall financial measures, KPIs for business, et cetera. I'm thinking like, hey, I'm a CEO, I'm not a CFO, but I should understand this stuff.
That's right.
So I had a call with a mentor, a new prospective mentor, I should say. And the questions he asked me right off the bat to look into, he's not giving me specifics, but he's like, look into this, this, and this. These are the levers you can pull on for your business. And I was like, dude, wow, I got a lot of work to do. That was priceless.
Yep.
Because he gave me information that maybe I would never have figured out.
Yeah.
And just, half an hour long conversation. And now I've got all these new levers to pull on for financial success in my business and things to look at. So I think that it's really invaluable to get together with people who, you are aligned with, who are of like mind, and who are out there making a difference, making it happen.
Yep. There's that word again, alignment, because when the weight is shared, we've already experienced this from our conversation a few minutes ago. When the weight is shared, it elevates, just like your experience. You can't elevate without the customer. As an entrepreneur, you're going to naturally put yourself on an island of sorts, and it's just very, very difficult to elevate without someone else being able to pour in, even if it's just a suggestion, even if it's just hearing someone else's story, like the listener is right now hearing yours. There's just so many ways that we can elevate, some free, some paid,
sure,
some in industry specific, some not, So I think that there's a lot of value there that you've shared. I got a question for you about family, Tim. You said that I could kind of surprise you a little bit here, so I'm going to do that.
Before
I've got this new phrase, this work-life obsession, not work-life balance,
like that.
But work-life obsession. And so here's my belief, is that there is no such thing as balance, and that we were successful in business because we were obsessed. And I plan, and I have been obsessed with my kids, my wife, my family, all the other things that I'm a part of as well, my community. And so how have you been obsessed in both? Let's just call it family or outside of business and business together at the same time.
I feel like I'm talking to myself. It's so crazy because I say all the time, particularly if I have an employee who's like, hey, I'm burning out. I don't have work-life balance. And I'm like, it's because you're trying to balance it. Can't. There's no such thing as work-life balance.
Yeah.
Work is life. Life is work, but also so is everything else that you do. Going to the beach and taking a vacation and unplugging is life. And even just listening to you, I'm like listening to you and I'm like, whoa, this is awesome. Someone who feels the same, has the same beliefs that I do about work-life balance. I think that I read a book once and I read it every year. It's called Free to Focus by Michael Hyatt. I don't know if you've ever read it before.
I haven't. It's actually on my nightstand. I haven't started it.
Oh, dude, you're going to love it. Please tell me. We're in another podcast. I'll be listening. Just talk about that book or something because Michael Hyatt is fantastic. In fact, I got my notes in his planner right here. His full focus planner. But I read it every year. Typically, I'll take what I learned from that and quarterly, not always, but quarterly, it is my goal to sit back and think about what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, what are areas in my life that I'm not paying attention to. Yeah. And I did last year, this time, I sat down. In fact, I took like 2 days. My mother-in-law came to town, helped my wife, the kids. And I took 2 days and I just went to a hotel, like a half an hour away. And I just sat in the room, except for meals. I sat in the room and I just kind of took inventory of my life, and with Free to Focus as the guide on like what I shouldn't be doing or paying attention to. I found that like 75% of my effort, my mental and physical and even spiritual effort was in business. It was all about business, maybe even more. And then the remaining 25% was really family, but just like the primary needs, like the physical needs of my family, making sure everyone's fed, clothes, off to school, etc. And I found that I wasn't putting literally anything into my family at a deeper level, nothing into myself at all. Yeah. Yeah. And that's when if you look at like, I would say like health apps and things like that, you've got your macros, your carbs, your proteins, your fats, things like that. I started to look at my life in macros in a way and just been like, wow,
that's good.
Yeah. Business is important, but I think that it's really important also to meditate a little bit or, get a little bit more spiritually connected, to unplug and play. Cause as business owners, we're probably like, oh, I can't play. I can't go have a beer with the neighbor down the street because then I'm not accomplishing anything.
Right.
So I think I've used the tools in that book to really help me become more productive in life and get more energy and focus into, what I'm not doing, I should say, that I should be, rather than just business. I hope that answers what you're getting at, but I think that it's just like you said, there's no such thing as work-life balance. It's just life.
Yep.
So just try to balance your life.
Just go for all of it, all the things that you say that you want.
Yeah.
I love the analysis of where you're at, taking the inventory. So that in essence, what you did is you recalibrated your intention. So again, not just use it, you said not to tie it all together, but literally that's what we've done here is we've tied it all together. And so when your intentions are set to what it is that you want, then you can make it really clear and go, okay, I need to spend a little bit more attention here, a little bit more time here, or a little bit more effort here, a little bit more money here. I've got a mastermind cruise coming up here in June, and it's for families. We're going on a family vacation. Nice. First and foremost, I designed it with my wife. We're going on a family vacation. Oh, yeah, by the way, we're going to do it with some other high performing business families, which is great. We're going to do some cool family vacation things together. Oh, but then I'm going to create some, sessions on marriage and family and of course business. I've got some experts coming in to do that, but
that's awesome.
All of that is like, that's time, money, and effort. Like that's how we invest time, money, effort.
Yeah. And you look at what you're investing in, and it's funny when you really lay it out on paper. I don't do it enough. I'm sure no one does it enough, but even if it's quarterly, even if it's annually, you'll really find what you're kind of neglecting or running from or procrastinating on. It's not many things that would bring a lot more joy into your life. One of mine was, I'm a gardener. I love gardening. Okay. And one of mine was just, last year was a pretty miserable year gardening wise. I didn't prepare in time. I didn't really give the garden the attention. And it's a perfect kind of analogy or metaphor to life there. It's like, I didn't water the garden enough. I didn't spend enough time in the garden. I'm going to do it this year. Yeah. So this year I'm like all prepped. I got my seeds and seed trays and the garden and is on a PDF and all that kind of stuff. So I feel ready, but it's that day. But so I took my inventory of what I wanted to do, which I thought would bring me joy in my gardening experience, if you will. But now it's time to really kind of just watch that every day. Like, what am I doing? to take care of that and make that happen. And we have so much fun with the kids in the garden, picking
Yeah.
strawberries or, helping prune the plants and things like that. So I think if people aren't doing that, I would really encourage them to just take inventory. It doesn't have to be too serious. Just get out a piece of paper and just say like, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I want to do. Where's the disconnect?
Do they match?
Yeah. Try to get them a little bit closer than last quarter or last year. And
Good,
I think
man.
over 5-10 years, you're not going to really know the difference between who you were and who you are.
Tim, I got one last question here for you.
Sure.
If you had an opportunity to whisper in the younger Tim's ear, what would you say?
Oh yeah. That's also a really good one. I mean, I think I would say patience. I would just say the word patience because often in life, I just never saw the whole picture and always kind of, again, like leap before I looked. And if I was whispering into, like 17, 18-year-old Tim's ear, it would just be like, just have patience because a lot of things just work themselves out over time and you don't have to try and force it.
Love that. Tim, how can we find you? Number one, where can we buy your products? You mentioned obviously craft beer, ciders, non-alcoholics, the whole deal. Where can we find those? And then also, how can we find you as an entrepreneur?
Of course, yeah. So our business is Levante Brewing Company. We're at Levante, that's Levante Brewing.com. And if you're lucky enough to be in a several state area, Pennsylvania, Virginia, DC is where we ship to directly. You can buy our stuff online and we can ship direct to you. We distribute in northeastern United States. So PA, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, Washington, DC, and Virginia. And we're expanding from there. So if anything, if you've never seen us or would like to have us in a store in that area, please go ask your local, grocer, beer distributor, et cetera. We'd be happy to service you and your area. And you can reach me at just my name, Tim, Tim Floros, Floros at levantebrewing.com. Any questions you have, happy to answer them.
Love it, man. You've been incredible. I've very much enjoyed our alignment here today. And you never know, maybe there'll be a co-host spot that opens up and you can apply.
Keep me in mind, man. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
I was gonna say, I've had an incredible time. Blessings on your family and your business and your team. Thank you for being here. We'll talk soon.
Same to you and yours, Chaz. Thanks, man.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing literally over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings literally exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.